Well, as we continue here, a discussion with Ed Wheatley, he is one of the baseball gurus, you're president of the St. Louis Browns Historical Society, the STLBrowns.com, and you can look on the walls behind us here. I'm going to put up for everybody to see on the TV wall here. You can see that is the Sportsman Park where the Browns used to play, and a whole website dedicated here, the STLBrowns.com, and check that out. And Ed and his team have put this website together. There is an incredible amount of great information there for you to really dig into there. Then also they have a Facebook group that you can join. I'm a member there, and just a lot of great information over here. You can dig into the history of the Browns, and Ed runs this and heads this up and knows just about everything there is to know with regard to all of what you see here. So we also pick his brain with regard to this other team we've got that we've had around for a little while now, the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll go ahead and put there. I just put up the Cardinal. This is Cardinals.com on the wall behind us. That forwards onto MLB.com/Cardinals. I'm an IT guy, and that's how MLB has taken control of that. They used to all have their own independent websites back in the day. And so now MLB manages that for them and helps them. But they can put their content up there. I've been put on their site a number of times with the fun stuff we do in the community, and they do a great job. So now let's dig into this a little bit. I asked Ed, can you tell me who are your starting 8 and DH? So you're going to have 9 now, and then give me your ace pitchers, line up your starting rotation for the Cardinals, if you would.
Well, I think if you just go around the bases, you got, Goldschmidt is a given at first base. Now, second base is kind of a question mark at the moment.
Yeah.
Donovan has won a Gold Glove. Edman has won a Gold Glove, but Edman's more focused. Once he gets healthy for center field is where they really want him. Gorman did a heck of a job last year playing second base and hitting home runs, but he did run into some back issues. Some people then would say, let's put Gorman at the DH, protect his bat and back, that is, not the bat. And, shortstop, it's definitely Mason Wynn's position to prove himself, take the pressure off of him. Here our shortstop. But they got Brandon Crawford, who they just acquired this week to be a backup and also provide guidance to him. I mean, Crawford had just an outstanding career with the Giants, so that is just a huge plus to have him. And you got, the best third baseman probably in baseball in Arenado's right there at third. Now, Walker's cemented it in right field. As I said, with Edman having the surgery on his wrist and coming back, he was designated to be the center fielder, but we just see how fast he can rebound. There's some question mark whether he'll be ready opening day. Does Dylan Carlson come into center field? He is the 4th theoretical outfielder. Time's going to tell. There's also a kid coming up. I'm telling you, a guy that very much impresses me when you're around him. He reminds me more of Lou Brock than Vince Coleman. Victor Scott III, I've been around him and I've talked to him. He was only up through A-ball last year. He's doing the quick run, led the leagues in stolen bases. That minor leagues, he always hits over 310 at least, which, that'd get him a cool $50 million a year or something if he had more time up in the majors. But no, he seems to be a guy who can hit. But the other thing is his defense is outstanding. And I always say, people, you got to realize in Major League Baseball, they hand out 20 Gold Gloves, 10 in the National League, 10 in the American League. In the minor leagues, where there's 120 teams, and only 9 Gold Gloves are awarded. And Victor Scott got a Gold Glove last year, his first year. So he is the future, just like Wynn is the future at shortstop. And over in left field, there's still a little competition going on left field. Does Donovan slide out to play left field, which he did last year? We've got Burleson, who's a very, very good young ball player coming out. Can he play outfield? They got rid of Tyler O'Neill. It was always, there were some people who said, well, O'Neill, he's going to hit home runs, but he also strikes out. Then they were saying, let these other kids get a chance. So you still got a competition going for left field and second base. Contreras is going to be your catcher. And, Sonny Gray, good acquisition. He's going to be your number one. And that's what you got to have. You got to have a guy who is a strong number one, because you got to go, you make the playoffs, you got to play that other team's number one and number two.
Right.
And then, hopefully Michaelis comes along as the number two. And then you got Lance Lynn, Motts, and Kyle Gibson to round out your starting rotation. And, they're going to give you lots of innings. And it's interesting, baseball, you think, oh, if I start and I pitch 5 innings, I did a really good job. Baseball has changed so much. Back from the days when you and I were young and pitchers pitched complete games every time practically. And, I go back into looking at box scores of certain games, and, it was nothing. It was a tight game. The 2 pitchers would pitch 11 or 12 innings each and didn't blink an eye. It's just that's how you did it. And, with this using the bullpens and all that, now, see, the games have changed a little. A lot of times, you've got a reliever go 1 or 2 innings to start the games, the first round through the other team's lineup, and then they bring in a longer man. So the game is in an evolution of pitching. So it's really kind of see how this plays out.
Yeah, the Cardinals had to make a number of changes and upgrades. A lot of people, or at least definite new faces, and one that we brought back, Lance Lynn.
Yeah.
You got Gibson. I wonder that's not the old Bob Gibson.
No, Kyle Gibson.
They're looking. Don't be confused there. But Kyle will do a great job. And do you think Sonny's going to be the ace of the squad?
He's set up. He's been given
for that.
He's been given the go for opening day. I mean, what an honor. And it's very seldom does that happen. Kyle Loesch was the last one, I believe, where you get traded to a team and you are handed the ball on the opening day.
Right, and with Wayno being retired now, so he's
before that there was Carpenter.
Yeah, and you had Carpenter for a long time, but now it's looking like this is a revitalized, or at least a rejuvenated pitching staff, and so a lot of new faces here. Are they going to come around and perform?
Well, they're going to give you innings, but can they control it? And then, we got Kendricks from Tampa Bay, great relief pitcher. But if there was a fault to the Cardinals last year, was about 30 blown saves by the bullpen. If they would have held half of that would have been 15 more games the Cardinals had won, which would have gotten you to a playoff. So, if there was an Achilles heel, it was the bullpen.
That was great. A lot of people blamed our starting pitching, and I guess the argument might be, well, the starting pitching didn't hold out long enough, so the middle relief had to come in sooner. But that middle relief did not do the job. It was very normal to have a starting pitching staff only go to 5 innings.
Well, and that's a catch-22, because the one thing, when you got a pitcher's constantly going 5 innings or less, that means you're using the bullpen over and over and over. And that's why you also got these back and forth from the minor leagues, because you got to keep fresh arms in the bullpen. Otherwise, who's going to finish these games?
Yeah, and they did. I looked the stat up. That's a stat that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to, but that is the blown save stat. And I think last year the Red Sox didn't do particularly well, but their blown save stat was like 8 at some point during an important part of the season, and the Cardinals were like 27, and we're leading the lead with the most blown saves. Right. If you just cut that in half, you don't have to say Cardinals go down to 8 like the Red Sox did, but half of that, you got 12 or 13 more wins.
You're in the playoffs.
The Cardinals had such a bad season. Well, you tack on 10 more wins, they're looking pretty good. Now it's 10 games. Come down to 162 games. 10 games really determines whether or not you're in the playoffs or where you're going.
So, I think that they have some maturity down there in the bullpen now. They got a couple leaders. They got some guys that had off years, bad years. Saying somebody had an off year, it's kind of interesting. Is that the start of off career, or is they bounce back? So that's one of the keys to watch here in spring training, how these relievers are handling themselves.
Yes, and so with that pitching coach, it's relatively new. We saw our Maddox went down to the Rangers as their pitching coach and ended up winning a World Series.
Yeah, he said he was tired. He needed a rest from baseball. That rest lasted about a week until Bochy killed him.
Bochy goes down there, takes over the squad.
And he had Montgomery here in St. Louis, and Montgomery, got traded to Texas, and he's still out there as a free agent. There's a lot of people would love to see Montgomery come to St. Louis, but again, Cardinals are, as we spoke earlier, they're kind of tied with this revenue thing with the TV contracts and the betting issues that they don't have. So can they afford what Montgomery's going to get for big money, big years?
Right. We talked about that a little bit. Let's dive back into it here in the second show a little bit. There is a real dilemma with regard to who's going to air the Cardinal games. I guess this year it's kind of designated Bally. Is that true?
Well, it is. I mean, but the Bally contract was supposed to expire at the end of August. Is how it was laid out. It has been now the complete season will be Bally's, but beyond that, who knows? And the other thing is too, for a decade or 2 decades, it was always when Fox Sports, they had all the games. There were if they were playing a game of the week, the old NBC games of the week, well, they would get it. And for our viewers who watching this, in the 60s, early 70s, there might only be 4 or 5 games a month, not this what we see is every day. So it got to be a big business. People were watching it. Advertising costs came up. And the Cardinals are one of 17 teams that were a part of the Bally's Diamond Vision property. And, the other 13, they don't have any issues, and they got free money. They know what their cash flow is out for a decade or more on these long-term contracts, and they can sign the big contracts. But
yeah, that's a team like the Yankees with the YES Network, what that stands for, but I've seen that YES Network. Yeah. They pump in all kinds of advertising revenue comes through there, and they've got a great
base. They got a huge audience.
They got a huge audience. In New York, the largest city, 19 million people, viewers in that area. I mean, they have a lot to offer there. Not as solid with what we got here. And are they going to straighten it out? What do you foresee as the future? If you had to predict anything you could throw out for next year, you think that might help them to settle this, because that helps predict who you can sign, et cetera.
It does. I mean, not knowing what their revenue stream is because of the betting issue and the TV, how do you sign someone to these hundreds of millions of dollar deals over 8 years and plus when you don't even know what your revenue is next year? That's the problem. But the key question is really, where is television viewership going to be seen? You look at St. Louis City, at the soccer, it's all on Apple.
Right.
Is baseball headed to streaming services? You've seen that. How many games? Remember, most of St. Louis could not watch Pujols' record get number 700 because it was on a streaming service, and people, and especially older generations, couldn't figure out how to watch it. So they're at a crossroads on what is. Will there be some that come back on free TV? How these people are cutting cords to the cable. Where is the home? And it's not just the Cardinals; it's the Blues. It's really all of baseball that they don't have. The Cardinals. There's been talk of the Cardinals creating their own package, or partnering with the Blues for a St. Louis package. So it's a big unknown.
Well, maybe I could throw some of my ideas. If you know who I should talk to over there with the St. Louis Cardinals, I've done some marketing. I post some ideas. Back in the day, worked at Anheuser-Busch, but a well-known auto service company had some ideas with, and this internet thing has really changed the way the game is played. And I have one idea. I talked to a friend of mine who knows the guy who just retired, head of marketing over there. Mm-hmm. But it can make a lot of sense. Help bring it all together. Maybe I should give my little pitch to one of those guys up there, because it could be a great source of revenue and give everybody what they're looking for. I'm going down this year to spring training. Mm-hmm. I've been there one other time. My dad is a big baseball fan. He's got a signed picture of Dizzy Dean back when Dizzy Dean used to get pictures in just a cowboy outfit. But he had this autographed picture.
He had a cowboy hat like you, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
He announced the games for the Browns and the Cardinals.
Yes, and so my mom said, "Look, your dad is not doing as well." At that time, he had just had a stroke. He said, "We want you to spend some time with him." So we went down to spring training. My dad is now up at the big baseball stadium in the sky, but we did spend some time down there. It was just a great experience. Yeah. Roger Dean. It's a very intimate, very small venue. There's probably only 800, 1,000 seats.
Oh, no, there's
more than that.
5, 10, 8,000.
It seems like in the pictures, because it is kind of like a minor league.
It is a minor league. It is it's the A division. They don't have seats out in the outfield, but they have built multi-level, because spring training has really evolved. In the old days, they just had open fields, and the fans would just sit. There were some areas where there were like bleacher seats, but in like the outfields, they would just have rope that would go around
Right.
what would be the perimeter, and people would just sit out there. I can remember doing that in the late 60s and 70s. It was just a very informal. But now it's become such a destination spot for people wanting to travel spring break. It is a big business. A lot of money is made in spring training these days, so they make it. And the other thing is, they have all these outfields. You used to have free roaming around, and there's more fenced areas to keep the demands of the fans. Because in the old days, I don't think the fans, although they loved the players, they respected them probably a little more. There wasn't all this demand for your time, your photo, your autograph. So it's a little more walled off than it used to be.
Yeah, that's why I say I'm looking for some information about the spring training and what you can do now. But Roger Dean, they actually share the stadium, and they're sharing that with is it the Marlins?
Yes.
And then not too far from there, you see they're playing the Astros,
Yeah,
they're playing the Nationals, and they have another stadium just south in West Palm Beach.
Yeah, the Mets have been over there, and some teams have been off and on. It was always down into Fort Lauderdale where the Orioles, the Yankees were down in Fort Lauderdale, because the Yankees and the Cardinals used to share Al Lang over in St. Petersburg. I mean, so you got the East Coast and the West Coast. When I was down there playing in our tournaments a couple weeks ago, we're down there with the Red Sox and the Twins and the Rays stadiums. But it is Roger Dean. The Cardinals do it well, and they make it special. But it has just become such a spring destination, and people traveling to make it a part of their lives, especially St. Louisans who love baseball. It's the ritual of the spring.
And I would say if there's anything you definitely need to pay attention to when you're down there at spring training, you still do have a little bit of access to the players.
Yeah, yes, you do.
Because I noticed a lot of people
times.
putting their pictures up, and
Yeah.
when they're the players come in down off that right field
They come
area.
down. They come down the right field line is how you come in from the clubhouse, and there's a berm there. And actually, if you're looking to buy seats, that's an area if you can get on that berm, which is just sitting on the grass on a blanket or whatever. That's where you see them and get the real good access.
Yeah, and I see a lot of my friends are showing up with their baseballs and say, "Can you sign this?" And they're a little more interactive. They kind of protect the players
Yes,
from
they
too
do.
much interaction especially during the
games
during the season.
Yeah.
Up here in St. Louis, and just because there's so much going on, you got to keep these players focused on what.
Well,
they're doing.
and it is hard now because the screens wrap all the way around the infield and that now because the just like at Busch Stadium for the hitting. And so nobody gets hits in the seats because they're all busy, looking at their cell phones.
I've had a few instances where I had a foul ball coming right at me. A friend of mine, he got a little excited, bumped me, and then deflected the ball, hit me on the side of the head. I had a little mark on my head. These kids next to us got the ball. They're like, "We're not big fans, but you seem like you are. Would you like the ball anyway?"
Yeah.
So they gave me the ball. I was like, "Well, there's a kid." But yeah, just that interaction. There's a lot more. You get to be a little closer.
It is.
I'll never forget.
You're
when
much
I was,
closer to the field. That's all.
Right, yeah. And I was excited. I had become familiar with some of the scouting guys and become introduced to some of them, and I saw them sitting in the seats, and then stepped back and had a discussion with them and some of the area. Oh, here's the guy who runs the International, and here's the guy who does the South. And my good friend of mine is a scout for the Cardinals who still does and travels around. And
Well,
does all that.
there's all the scout section behind home plate with the guys, and it's just like going down to Springfield or Memphis. It's that same kind of environment. You're just closer to the field and the presence.
Yes, and what a lot of people are also now saying, well, Carter, the Cardinals are 3-4. They got rained out. They're probably not going to make that game up. Put no weight into anything that they with results together. They're getting guys in tune, trying new things, building confidence. We talked a little bit in our pregame prep. What should people expect from?
Well, what you expect out of spring training is not a lot. Stats look at for certain things in a player, but across the board, these first weeks or so, you look at the box score and you say, who are these pitchers? What's the name of these guys? They're bringing these guys up. And they're trying to get them into the baseball experience, get them into feeling the pressure of playing in a major league level and facing different major league players. And it's also a thing not to get, what was it the other day when Gibson, the first two batters, I think the first two pitches were both home runs. A pitcher goes out there and he's got directive to throw, let's say, a changeup. Work on your changeup today, or maybe he's learning a changeup. That's what you're going to throw way more than you would a game, but you're getting the feel, you're getting that release point, you're getting all that. And he's going to keep throwing it. and trying to get it to where it is an effective pitch. But and it really you can't get that just in a bullpen. You have to face hitters, and it's even better in a game situation than facing hitters of your own team. And so a lot of times, he may not throw a slider, he may not throw his fastball because they want to see how this works. And so there's a lot of that, and you'll have a batter come up. Now I want you to hit the right field today. I don't want you to pull you like you normally down left, because there's going to be game situations. We need you, that man on second. We want you to put it into right field so he'll score. So as a player, you come up on a mound or at the plate with an objective, and this is your objective for this game. Now that may not be how it goes once you come up to St. Louis and the league starts. You're down there to work on things, and so it's not always what you think. Oh my God, Gibson, we got him. Spend all the money. The first 2 pitches he throws are home runs. It's because he was working on something, probably.
Yeah. Well, so don't get too excited about what the Cardinals do down in spring training.
Fred Changes used to say, "What you see in spring training doesn't matter."
Doesn't matter. Yeah, and Red would know if anybody said anything about. He was with the Cardinals for 60-something years.
Six decades in that uniform.
All right. Okay. Well, I also want to share with you guys a little bit of what Ed brings to the table for our community. Running the St. Louis Browns Historical Society, I'm going to go ahead and put that back up on the wall for everybody here and take a look, because there's just a lot of what goes on with the history of the St. Louis Browns. A lot of people don't realize. And you also, I'm going to put this on the wall for everybody right now, too, have won an Emmy. And I put that on your title up here. For people wonder what that picture is, there it is.
Yeah, we made.
Tell me about that and what that has to do with.
Well, first of all, for 52 seasons, St. Louis was one of the exclusive club of having 2 Major League Baseball teams. So it really helped create the great culture of baseball that we have today, because the Browns and the Cardinals played together from 1902 to 1953. And then in 54, the Browns went to Baltimore. But there's such a love and memory of this Browns team, the underdogs. And this is the 80th anniversary of the pinnacle of baseball in St. Louis, and hopefully one day we'll have a session just on that. In the 1944 World Series, where the Cardinals and Browns faced each other, think about only a few times has that ever happened where the city has had the baseball series of both their teams. And, people love the Browns. Browns had one of the greatest ball players ever, and as a result, he's probably the most forgotten great in George Sisler. Unbelievable credentials in the 22 season, unlike anybody ever had. 3 years in a row, he averaged over 400. It was the hits leader record until it was broken by Suzuki, and it was mainly because he had more games. And it was many great players. We were the first team in Major League Baseball to have 2 African Americans in 1947, just a month or so after Jackie Robinson on April 15, and days after Larry Doby was the first African American in the American League with the Indians. The great Satchel Paige was here. All these are things that we don't want people to forget. It's like I always get, my grandfather, my father loved the Browns. I want to learn about them. So, one of the things I did, taking over this historical society, which began in 1984, this is the 40th anniversary of our fan club, is I wrote the book on the St. Louis Browns that became a bestseller, became the best book published in baseball, a bunch of other awards. And from that, PBS came, and we started talking. And we made the first movie Emmy-nominated. John Hamm, the actor from St. Louis, was in there with us doing the narration. And we set records for viewership and pledge drive giving for PBS. And they asked me, can we do it? What kind of, you got a sequel or something? I said, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I did not get in there. And we, again, did that film. It also got an Emmy nomination, and I won an Emmy for that. That then led to our infamous Wrestling at the Chase book and film, and we're now working on a film from my book on sports moments and memories from America's best sports town. But it really is an honor to keep this alive. We have a luncheon every year. 400 people come to the MAC. Heck, Bob Costas called me a few days before the one last year and said, "Hey, I'm cutting through. Come. You're doing right." I mean, we have great speakers. Rick Dempsey was there last year. If you remember Rick Dempsey from the Orioles, MVP, '83 World Series, but more.
I'll be there next year.
His hilarious mime of Babe Ruth called shot during a rain delay. He put that whole stunt together. And, we've had some of the greatest baseball players come. And we do round tables. We just did one on the 80th anniversary of the World Series I spoke of. And we got, every year over at the Gateway Grizzlies, where we have Browns night. It's one of their top draws. We get one of the first picks of when we want to do it, when they get their schedule. We dress them up in a year tied to a player, like I spoke of George Sisler, 1922, the greatest Brown ever. So we dress them as 1922 uniforms. So you get to see these old retro uniforms. I always put the other team in a Washington Senators uniform. And we fill the stadium. We give a bobblehead of that player. Great bobbleheads. They're known across baseball because I reject them 2 or 3 times just to get the exact facial recognition I want, as opposed to some of these bobbleheads you see out from different entities. They don't look like the players. Ours do. And I guess eBay must agree too, because when I see what they're being sold for. But so we do all kinds of events throughout the year. And it's important because, as I've spoken many times on your shows here and elsewhere, there's nothing for the New York Giants. There's nothing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. There's nothing for the Philadelphia A's. There's nothing for the Boston Braves. But if I go out to Oakland, all the pennants Connie Mack won in Philadelphia are flying. I go down to Atlanta, the Braves, and there's the championships won in Boston and Milwaukee. The Dodgers honor the 55 Brooklyn Dodger team and all the National League pennants, and the Giants honor the Giants of New York. And you go to Baltimore, there's nothing about the Browns. They wouldn't even sell our book in their gift shop. And I get on the radio a lot in Baltimore talking about events or things, like when Baltimore comes to St. Louis. People go, "What are you talking about? We've never heard about this stuff." So it's really humbling, and it's a credit to the love of baseball and the people of St. Louis. They keep this fan club. We got about over 700 members across the nation actively participating in this thing, and it just shows what is special. And I also got to take my hat off to Bill DeWitt III, Bill DeWitt Jr., for their help in supporting us too in this mission, because their dad and grandfather, Bill DeWitt Sr., was the longtime executive and general manager of the Browns, and even owned them for a few years in the late 40s, early 50s.
We could go on for hours here. Ed is an infinite wisdom with regard to Cardinals, Browns, and baseball in general. Stay tuned for more. This is the Your Little Castle Show, and check out the STLBrowns.com. We'll be back, everybody.